What would be one of your biggest challenges for retail properties?
Yeah, well, so the biggest challenge for retail properties right now that I have is getting the properties ADA compliant. That's Access Disability Act. So over the years, I've learned this too. A lot of landlords who own retail commercial centers don't realize they have to have ADA compliances for accessibility, ingress, egress. The properties have to have a certain amount of slopes to it for their sidewalks. The biggest thing is parking. A lot of them, you go into them and there's no ADA parking stalls. And so that has to be done. So I know pretty much all the ADA laws for the retail centers having parking stall. You have to have one per 25, make sure they're striped, the sloping, proper signage up. So that's a huge thing now. And there are several lawsuits that have been hit on centers because they're not in compliance, right? And then even back to, and then on the retail centers, the tenants basically are usually responsible for their own, getting their own restroom set up and everything. A lot of times, sometimes the landlord will have to go in there and get them ready initially, but normally it'll fall on the tenant. With office buildings, a lot of the ones that we took over managing in the past, none of them were ADA set up. So I had to go in and redo the restrooms. That was probably the biggest challenge with the office. Was same thing. They had ADA issues with parking in the front and the back. The restrooms weren't set up for ADA. You know, the stalls weren't the same size, towel bars, there's all kinds of things. But my specialty was getting in there and getting them all ADA compliant so there would be nobody getting sued. And now they're starting to sue apartment complexes now, more and more.
Tell us who they is.
There's basically three, I call them snake law firms, that they actually hire people to go out and look for ADA stuff. They go out to different centers and they assess the centers, and they'll go into restaurants to look at stuff. And usually the restaurant owner is responsible for their own stuff, but they try to still sue the landlord. But they go after restaurants and they actually look at the parking lot, and they'll go up and down the sidewalks, see if they can get the wheelchair up there okay. They'll look for this proper signage, you know, are the stalls the proper size? So they look at all that stuff. And now they're getting these three attorneys now because they make, each violation is like $4,000. And some of the cases could be involve, you know, thousands of dollars up to even hundreds of thousands sometimes, depends on the violation. So they now they're hitting apartment buildings now. We've had a couple of apartment buildings that have been for ADA. I think my specialty is that I've learned a lot of the laws for ADA, and I own apartments, so I have to know the apartment ones too to make sure my apartments are compliant. And then of course retail commercial, because you want to protect your client from getting sued.